Good afternoon, everyone. This is Marvin Powell with a special edition of Coffee Tea, You and Me. Today I decided I was going to do something really special, and I'm hoping that people will enjoy it and we'll have a good time working together and discovering some of the things that you could do to present yourself or to present actually anything better. If you look at the chat, environment we have here, we have two downloads that I'd like for you to go ahead and access if you get a chance. I know we're starting our broadcast a little early, so there's not anyone on it yet, but when you get a chance to review this, if you're looking at it again, you can look at the chat box and you can download the two documents that I'm giving you that might help you begin to determine what you might want to do when it comes to developing, say, the perfect presentation or elevator speech, or you want to introduce yourself for the first time amongst a group of people or even to an individual. The big thing is, what do you say when someone asks you? What do you do? Do you say something that is going to be memorable? Do you say something that's going to help them kind of get a concept of what you do, or do you want to start a conversation? What is your goal? What do you want them to do as a result of listening to you for the next 30 seconds to 2 minutes about what it is that you have to say? Because I know we often get into conversations where no matter what level of professional you are, whether you're an executive or a sales professional or even just a leader in an organization, and someone asks you, well, what's it all about? Or what do you do? Or what does this mean? Or what is the significance of this? It's important that you have a response that is going to be indicative of where you want the person who's listening to go. And so there are some things some no-nos that I'm going to share with you that most of us tend to do whenever we are asked this question. Well, what do you do? Or who are you? We tend to start that with stuff that doesn't really matter. For instance, your title doesn't matter. If you say, well, I'm the CEO of the company, or you say, I'm a financial advisor, or you say, I'm an engineer, or I am a realtor. And the minute you start a program or start a process off with something as simple as just a name or the name of the presentation, or I work for a specific company, you automatically do one of two things. And they're both dangerously insignificant when it comes to trying to communicate an effective message. One thing you might be doing when you introduce yourself and you start off with your name or your title right up front, or the company that you work for, is you might be putting yourself into a stereotypical box, meaning someone may have a preconceived notion of that company or that industry or the position that you have. And what you have then is them starting to think through immediately as soon as you open up your mouth, well, this is what it's all about. I know every time somebody tells me that they are in insurance sales, right, I immediately start thinking, okay, I know what that's all about. I got it. They're going to talk to me about, premiums and deductibles and coverages and, strategies I might want to use to protect myself and so on and so forth. And, if I'm at all interested in any of that, maybe that conversation can continue. Maybe I'll be open to talking to them, especially if it's something that, I realize that I do want to, in fact, myself sell an insurance agent. And so I want to make sure that I'm going to be paying attention to that. But most of us, when we hear whatever your title is, we're going to put you in a box. We're going to stereotype you. We're going to decide that we already know what you have to say now. And then we're like on auto tune. No, we're just not listening anymore in any deep or meaningful way that's going to help you create any type of significance or engagement. And so it's very, very important that you don't start off your presentation. You don't start off whatever you're going to talk about with, the boring stuff. You don't want to start off with the name of your company, the name of your title, or even your name, because quite frankly, it's insignificant at the first part of any type of introduction. The second thing can happen is not only do you get yourself into a stereotypical situation where people assume that they know what you're all about, the next thing that happens is you might be positioning yourself in such a way as to just be irrelevant right off the bat. Whatever you're saying is not meaningful or not specific enough to mean anything to someone else. Sometimes your name or the name of your company could cause a level of intrigue that has nothing to do with what you want to say. So if you say, I work for Amazon, okay, now everybody's asking the question, well, oh wow, what do you do for Amazon? And you work for Amazon, and they're thinking about Amazon. They're not thinking about what you're saying or what you're doing. They're thinking about the name of the company. They're thinking about your name. If you say your name, sometimes your name may have some kind of ethnic ring to it, or something that will make them think of somebody that they already know. It might be so simple that everybody in their mother has the same name, right? So my name is John Smith. They're like, oh well, that's really no significant thing. There's 1,000 John Smiths out there, but you may cause somebody to start running through their own mental Rolodex, like, oh, that's a unique name. I wonder who I know who has that same name. I get in trouble all the time because my name is Marvin Powell. When people hear my name, sometimes they associate that with the football player Marvin Powell, who used to play for the Jets, or his son, who also played for the Jets. And so because I'm a big guy, I'm a black guy, people hear the name and they all, oh, Marvin Powell, are you that guy? And so sometimes, if I lead with my name, I'm automatically being compared or identified by something that has nothing to do with what I want to talk about. And this is very important stuff, because you don't want your presentation or your introduction to be hijacked with something other than what you want to explain, to share, to create, or to produce. Okay, and so I found that there are 5 key elements that you always want to bring into whatever presentation that you have, or whatever presentation that you want to use when it comes to working with other people. And these key elements are so important. If you forget them, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you really can't recover the attention that you want to have. Your presentation won't be memorable, and you simply won't be able to influence or engage them in any way that's going to create opportunity for you. And so if you want to do it right, you're going to have to keep these 5 elements as a part of every presentation that you do. So I'm going to go through the 5 elements really quickly, and then I'm going to list them, and then I'm going to share with you each of them and what they mean and how you could use them. Element number 1 is impact. So, element number 2 is drama. Element number 3 is heroism. Element number 4 is vision, and element number 5 is recognition. Impact, drama, heroism, vision, and recognition. And if you're following along with me in the presentation that I've shared with you, you might want to scroll down to, I think it's around page 5, and you'll start to see a listing of those elements. It's critically important that you think through these elements, because it really represents a simple system that when you use it correctly, you will be able to make sure that people listen to you. You'll be able to make sure that what you say has meaning and relevance to people. You'll be able to encourage them to do something with it. They'll be able to remember it. They'll be able to share it with people that you want them to share it with. And then finally, the data, the statistics, your name, your company will become more relevant because you've said something or you've shared something that does what it's supposed to do, which is communicate effectively in a way that people can easily understand. In the beginning of our presentation of our packet, you may see that there is an idea of what typically happens in a networking conversation where 2 people get together and they finally meet each other, or they see each other after coming to an event that they may be sharing at the same time. And, one guy says to the other, I'm so glad that I got a chance to be here. And the other guy says, me too. And then they listen to, collectively listen to somebody else who's given a presentation, a personal presentation. And that guy drones on about something that no one cares about. I mean, really, he's got the microphone, he's got the pulpit, he's got the stand, the grandstand, and he's given just the worst information. He's sharing stuff that is really boring, really insignificant, and he thinks he's sharing something magical. He's talking about his position and how special he is and how much history he has in it, or how much experience he has in what he's doing. He's an engineer, so he's using all kinds of words and acronyms that only matter to people in the industry or people that are with him, and he's making a mess of things, and he doesn't even know it, because what happens is everybody sees what he's saying, and they nod and they clap, and then they wait for their turn to speak. It's a horrible way to represent yourself, because the reality is the feedback that people are giving you is not real feedback. They're not really encouraging you to continue this, diatribe of craziness that you're just unloading on them, right? They want you to just sit down and shut up, right? And so they're clapping so you can stop talking, and you don't want that. You don't want to have, whenever you are with a group of people, or if you're introducing yourself, you don't want to be boring. You don't want to be insignificant or irrelevant. This is why groups like Toastmasters were invented in the first place, to teach you how to do extemporaneous presentation, how to speak off the cuff, off the fly. But, I find that when we do that and we don't understand that there's rules involved with this thing, then we create a mess that is very, very difficult to recover from. So let's look at some of the rules again. The first rule is impact. Now, impact is incredibly important, because the first thing you want to say out of your mouth needs to land. It needs to land on the audience that you're in front of. Now, it's much easier to do that if you've done some homework about that audience, if you've analyzed that audience ahead of time, if you know what group you're going to, you know what you're talking about, you know where you're going, you can create some impact. But when I think about impact, I always think about, some of the most compelling ideas out there. And one of those I want to share with you comes from a good quote that I found by Jackie Robinson. Robinson says, a life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. If you're going to take the time to speak, if you're going to take the time to introduce yourself, you're going to take the time to present some idea or something, you want it to have impact. You want it to be meaningful. You want it to be compelling. You have to do it in a way that works for most human beings. And what works for most human beings, no matter where they come from, no matter what their race, color, creed is, or age is to tell a compelling story. Now, there are elements in a compelling story that you must have in your presentation. First thing I would say to you is, if you're going to start a presentation, it's always great to start with an open-ended question. It's always great to start with something that people are starting to think about, because when you ask a question, what's naturally involved in the human process is your brain begins to process an information. You begin to go, I wonder what this is about. Oh yeah, okay. I'm thinking about, now you're literally forcing people, if they're listening, to engage. Now, if that is a good question or a series of short, good questions, you can get there. You can get some impact that way. The other way to get some impact in the storytelling format or storytelling format is to begin with character development. Is to begin talking about a character. Begin talking about a third party, somebody who is not you, somebody who is somebody else, and you're telling a story. You just like any other story you may have heard. Jack and Jill went up the hill. You're like, who's Jack and Jill, right? You start off with character development. You find out that Jack and Jill are children. You find out that they're young. You find out they're brother and sister, or they might be just young friends, right? But you find out about that character development. You find out ways that you can identify with the character. And it's very, very important, if you're going to tell a story about something or something happening using the story format, you want to do some character development right up front. You don't want to try to figure out who this character is on the back end. I like that, when people talk about Quentin Tarantino, his stories and the way he films things, often he takes the characters and he takes the work of the arc of the story, and he chops it up and moves it around in the different sections. And that creates great tension and a great visual tension, because something is happening, but you don't know to who the something is happening to. And so you don't have really feeling for the person at that point. You just have feeling for the moment. You see the moment and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh my God, this is exciting. Oh my God, whatever oh my God is, right? And so, but you don't have a feeling for the character yet. You don't want to do that to people when you're trying to develop a story in a presentation, right? You want to start off with good character development or a good open-ended question, something that moves people's attention and grabs their attention. And the more a person is familiar with the character that you're talking about, the more they're going to listen to what you're going to say next. I've heard many a chiropractor who might do a presentation and they'll say, you know what, have you ever seen somebody when they try to get up, they make they do that rocking thing when they try to get up, and you hear the noise in their bones, they're cracking, their bones are cracking, and you hear them grunt a little bit, they go, ugh, because they're trying to get up, and it's an ordeal, right? And most people have identified with that. They've seen that happen before. And they've heard somebody do that before. They may even know somebody who's experiencing that. They may be experiencing that themselves. But because you've described the character in this way, you've began to develop that character in a way that people are now starting to identify with someone who later on the chiropractor can help. And so you want to do some character development, especially if you want somebody to move somebody into some intentional, engaging opportunities. You want to do that character development. Very, very important to do. We're going to give you some examples of how to do that even more a little later on as we continue to talk about this. And in fact, if you want to, you can go to the last part of the workbook, and you'll be able to see some worksheets where you can use to develop characters and learn how to develop characters. All right. But it's very, very important. If you do this well, what's going to happen is people are going to start to identify with somebody you're talking about. And they're going to start to feel for that character, right? You're not going to present any drama here in this part. You're just going to present the demographic information about the character, maybe 3 to 5 demographic pieces about the character. So let me give you an example from my situation as a coach, right? So if I'm working with somebody, I'm going to tell somebody's asking me, well, what do you do? I may ask them, okay, would you mind if I tell you a little bit about, some of the people I'm working with, or a person that I'm working with, and give you a great example? And they're going to say yes, right? So I'm going to say, one of my best clients, Kelly, is 32 years old. She has 2 kids, one's 9 and one's 12, and she is literally at the middle stage of her architectural and design firm experience, and she's thinking about whether she should go out on her own or should she stay in the company that she's with for the next 10 or 15 years into retirement and ride off into the sunset in that way. And she's got a husband, she's got some student loans she still has to pay off, and she lives right here in Fairfax County. So all that's demographic information. And what happens when you give people demographic information is they start going through their own mental Rolodex about people that they know that fit the same or similar description. You may have thought about somebody who who's in middle stage of their career. You may have thought about somebody who who was a young professional mother, or you may have thought about somebody that who lived in Fairfax, or all of the above, right? But the whole goal is to get you engaged in the presentation, to get you engaged in the story part of the presentation right up front, so that you want to listen. You want to find out what happened to the character. You want to find out what's next. And so what's next in when you've gone through, when you've done the impact part of a professional presentation, you want to get into the drama. Well, something is happening to the character, right? This character has a dilemma. It's a problem, because she has to decide, do I want to take the time to take all that I've learned and all that I am and hang out my own shingle so that I can make my own money, call my own shots, build all the wealth that I possibly can build for the next 15 to 20 years of my career? Do I want to do that? Or do I want to stick it out in the firm that I'm in right now and hope that I'll be promoted up through the ladder, maybe into a partnership track or whatever? It's very, very important, because she's always wanted to be an architect. She's always wanted to be in the design world. She's always wanted to run her own shop and do her own things. And she got the experience she needed at the firm, but now she's got to make this decision, because if she doesn't make it now, it's going to be even that much more difficult, as you can imagine, as the kids start getting older. They start getting up college age, and then, you've got student loans and debt to deal with, and house and mortgage payments, and, all the things that come along with, an older adult in an older profession. So she's got to really, really figure out how to analyze and figure out what this decision is, because if she makes the wrong decision right now in mid-stage career, she could be in a world of hurt in terms of opportunities for her, or and she's putting a lot of trust and faith in her organization that's going to be able to promote her lifestyle and create for her something that is akin to a lot more control and a lot more developmental processes in her career. This is drama, right? You want to be able to talk about that drama. You want to be able to let that drama sink in. In fact, that drama has to be so compelling and so deep that the decision that has to happen as a result of the drama can be harrowing. It could be stressful. It could be high tension. It's got to be something that's going to come. If you can make people cry, if you can make people feel for the character so much so they have an emotional response, then you're really, really doing a good job. Because later on, we're going to talk about how your problem, how your solution, or how solutions that you might provide or know about are going to come in and solve the problem. But you have to create the problem before the problem gets solved, right? So I'm working with professionals, and I'm working with professionals just like the client that I described to you earlier. And I'm going to, and hopefully somebody in this situation is going to be able to go, oh, who you need to see in this case is Coach Powell, right? You need to have him, help you figure out and tighten up where your vision and your mission needs to be, where your opportunities are lying out there, so you can make a quality decision, right? So after you've gone through that first process, you've got the impact and you laid that in, you got the drama. The next piece you want to deal with when it comes to your delivery of your personal presentation is you need to have a hero step in and save the day. Because the character that you have just shared with everyone has experienced the drama. You've unpacked the mental opportunities. You're starting to think through people who fit the same character. You got to give a good character demographic description, or they won't think of anybody they know. Then you sink that drama in with the problem, with some details, 5 to 6 key issues that may sink that drama into the person's mindset that you're talking to, the people that you're talking to. And now they're feeling like, oh my God, what happened? And here is where the hero comes in and saves the day. Now, it's key. The key to heroism in a story is the hero in the story that you're telling can't be you. If the hero is you, then it's going to sound like you're talking about how wonderful you are, how credible you are, how great you are, and you're no better than the person I described earlier, who stands up in the meeting and says how wonderful I am, how great I am, how long I've been involved with the career field that I'm in, how much experience I have, how talented I am. And you're no better than that person. And you don't want to be on that level with that person. You want to be so much better than they bring to the table. So you want to be able to make sure that you're really talking about the things that bring out the credibility, not just in yourself, but in the person who's making the decision to bring you on. So the hero in this story, in your story, can't be you. It has to be the person who's experiencing the drama, the person who is making the decision. And in this case, my client has decided to reach out to her friends. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know who to talk to. And it just so happened that one of her friends knew me, right? And her friend said, listen, you should really talk to Coach Powell. And she said, I don't want to talk to a coach because, what is a coach anyway? They don't really do very much. I don't need a therapist. I don't need somebody to talk to. I need somebody who's going to help me get this thing done. And it just so happened that the person she was talking to was a former client of mine and was able to say, you know what, it's not going to be like that with him. Just give him a call. He's very inexpensive. It doesn't take a lot. He's going to make sure he works in a short period of time. So he'll make sure that, you can make his quick decision, and then you can decide either this or that, and you can move on with your life, and it'll be a great opportunity for you. So she took the risk, and she picked up the phone and she gave me a call, and I introduced to her my Vision Quest 90 process. And when she understood what the Vision Quest 90 process was all about, she understood that she could now make a much better quality decision if she used this process in making her decision. In fact, it's worked 100% of the time for most professionals that have embraced it. And so she had enough third-party influence. She had a friend who said it was great. She really believed her friend and talked to her friend. So, there was already a tremendous amount of credibility in that when she decided to make the decision. And truly that was a heroic decision, Because anytime you take an opportunity as a professional to change what you're doing, to change what your strategy is, to change where you're trying to go, it takes a lot. You don't just have to decide, now you have to execute on that decision. And your ability to execute or not execute on that decision, is your emotional well-being is hanging in the balance. And you want to be very careful about how you make these types of decisions. And so my client was able to make the decision and become the hero for herself, because she was not only able to decide, she was able to execute in a way that made a whole lot of sense. So, you've got the impact, right? You've got the drama, and now the hero has stepped in. You've become the hero. The client has become the hero. The person you're describing has become the hero. The next thing you want to share in your story is vision. Vision is critically important to rounding out a story, because now the people have heard the story. They need to know what to do with the story. Where do they share the story? What's important about this story to share, and how do they share it with the next person? It's a beautiful thing, because you know that when individuals or human beings hear a story, it's so much easier to remember than facts and features and structure and strategy and history. A story is memorable. Just like songs are memorable, or art is memorable, poems are memorable. Anything that triggers our human response and helps us to engage our brains in a way that we can remember things is a good thing. And so now that you've told a great, compelling story, you want to now give them some direction as to where this story should play. Where should they share this story? And it reminds me of a quote from Helen Keller, who says that the most pathetic person in the world is someone who has sight but no vision. If you have a story that you've told someone and you don't give them a place to go and share that story, you've just wasted that story. And a lot of us, we want our messages to go viral. We don't want to just say one thing to one person. We want to say one thing to one person. We want that one person to share it with the right people, and we want that right people to respond to it and engage. And that creates a message that can go viral. But if we don't do it right, if we don't create the story correctly, if we don't engage correctly, if we don't, then, not only do we not further the conversation, not only do people not remember what we're saying, there's no place for them to share. So you have to give them the vision of where you hope this story will be shared. So in my case, I would say, I work with professionals just like Kelly, the one I just described. And if you know professionals like Kelly, I'd like for you to share that story with them. I'd like for you to share the story of how I work with them to help them make the next decision, make the next changes, and the story about my process and how my process works. They don't have to know all the details. They don't have to know all the criteria. They just have to know who to share that story with. Now, I could say, if you happen to know engineers, architects, professionals of any type that are licensed to do what they need to do, I would love it if you would share that story with those people. Can I depend on you to do that? Now I'm asking a question. I'm sinking it in. Not only am I giving you a vision of what to do, what I want you to do, I'm asking you the question. I'm asking you for the commitment. I'm asking you for what I desire. It would be a significant help for me if you can help me share this story with people just like my client that I shared with you. It would be a significant help with me. It would help me to further my business. It would help me to grow my business. It would help me to not have to spend so much money in marketing and time, effort, and energy. Can I depend on you to do that? And here's what happens when you give people the tools that they need to help you. It's such a refreshing thing that people almost can't help but to want to help you. You're taking advantage of what's most significant in the character and the nature of most human beings is that we want to be relevant and meaningful and significant to the people that we engage with. And we want to know that we're doing something relevant and meaningful. No one wants to do something for someone else that is boring or uninteresting or inappropriate. They don't want to do that. That's not what we want to. We don't want to. We don't walk the earth, with the mission of being inappropriate. And so when you engage, when you tell people stories, when you work with people, you want to make sure that you're delivering on the promise of their attention, right? They've just given you their attention. You want to give them back something that's meaningful. And here it is, an opportunity to serve you. There's an opportunity to make sure that they do what they have promised to do with you and for you. Do something that they can do to commit to you in a way that's meaningful. When a person hears the story that I just shared with you and they go off and they share it with someone else and they tell me, you know what? I just talked to my friend so-and-so about your process, your product, your service. They're excited. They're interested. Can I give them your number? The answer is going to be yes. Right? I'm not going to bore them with all the details. I'm not going to try to make them learn what I've learned or what I've done for the last 15, 20 years. I'm not going to try to transfer that in that small period of time. I'm just going to tell them a quick story. And then I'm going to give them what they need to who they need to share that story with. And that's the vision. Who should hear the story? Who should know more about the story? And then finally, I'm going to give them the stuff that most people pack up front. I'm going to say, my name is Coach Powell. I run Coach Powell Training and Development. For the last 20 years, we've been creating opportunities for entrepreneurs and business leaders to grow, to share, and become what they deserve to become. And I like to help the friends that you know to move the needle a little further for themselves. That's basically the closing statement. And that's when you tell them who you are. That's when you tell them the name of your company. That's when you tell them whatever statistics that you want to share with them, maybe one or two, not a whole lot of statistics, right? But just one or two bits of credible information that's going to make them remember you. Because at that point is when they care about the data. At that point in the story or in the process is when they care about who you are. I know that you're used to delivering presentations where they talk about the introduction of the person and all that kind of stuff up front. And that works well when a person's being introduced really, really well. But if you're on the stage and it's you and you have to introduce yourself, I'm telling you, save the best for last. Save that introduction and that recognition of you to the point, at a point in the presentation where it's going to matter. People are going to care. They're going to want to know, right? If you start off with your contact information, your website, your name, your customer number, whatever it is that they need to do to engage with you before you've even given them any reason to engage with you or to understand you or to want to know more from you, then I think you've put the cart before the horse. And that's the last thing you want to do when you introduce yourself for the first time to an audience, to another person. If you're in an elevator and someone says, well, what is it that you do? You want to be ready. You want to be ready with the 5 elements. You want to be ready when it comes to making things happen. You want to give them impact right up front. You want to set that stage and that drama. You want it going right up front. You want to give them a heroic opportunity. You want to show the heroism that comes out of the people that you work with. You want to give them vision for where they want to plant this story and put it next. And finally, you want the recognition of the talent, the expertise, and the ability that you have. And that's when it's all going to come together and all going to work exceptionally well for you. Now, I know that I've talked about a lot here today, and I want you to know that there's a lot of information that I put in the chat box. There's some workbooks and some work sections that I put in there. That first sheet that I asked you to download, it's in the chat box. it's really an assessment tool of your networking. It will help you figure out if you are a good networker, and if you are a good networker, how good of a networker you are. If you're a bad networker, how bad of a networker you are. I love this tool because this tool is amazing. It will help you figure out where you need help and where you should be working with the people in your network, the professionals that you know, to help you figure out what to do next. I love the assessment tool. So I'm going to go through it really quickly for those of you who are on the call. For those of you who are still here, you might want to go back if you came a little late. You might want to catch the recording and you want to go back and check out the earlier part where I really discuss the 5 elements of perfect presentation and how you can embrace those 5 elements. I've also put the entire 5 elements workbook, which is a description of the 5 elements and lots of tools and stuff in your toolkit that you can use to break down the presentations. And what's good to know, and I think a couple of tips I want to give you before I go into the downloadables. What's good to know about the 5 elements is that there's a couple quick tips that I think are really good for you, right? Understand you must tell a story. You have 60 seconds. You can tell a story in 60 seconds. You can't tell a good story in 45 seconds. You need about 60 seconds to tell a good story. If you try to shortcut the elements of a story, then you're not going to be telling a story. You're really going to be giving a quick advertisement, and that doesn't resonate as much as a story does. It's not as memorable as a story is. It's not as easy to share because you have to start slicing things out and cutting things out. And most people will cut out the character development, right? So if you just start a story with drama and no character development, what happens is people don't connect with the character. They're looking at you as the storyteller, and they're not leaving you. They're watching you or paying attention to you, but they're not engaging with the character because they're not feeling the character. You've got to do that character development. So people try to cut that out and they go straight to the drama because they know without the drama, then they can't talk about how wonderful the heroic part. They can't talk about how wonderful the heroic decision was. And then they make the mistake of, instead of letting the character be the hero, they make themselves the hero. And then they start sounding like they're touting themselves, right? There's so many things I could tell you about this, but and I go into detail when I'm talking to the members of the roundtable. I give them all the training they want to have for that, and in fact, there should be some way to get to the roundtable. I'll put it in the chat box. If you ever want to come visit and see what we're doing at the roundtable, you're going to find that we teach people how to network. We teach people how to network and how to practice together, to practice their networking skills, to rehearse their networking skills, so that when they go out, they know how to do everything they need to do. And it's based on 3 common characteristics, or I would say the keys to modern networking, right? You have to know how to do 3 things. 1, you have to know how to communicate at an exceptionally high level. And communication is not just what you say, it's how you listen, right? So it's a back and forth. You have to know how to collaborate with others. You have to value collaboration. If you are all about you and what you want and how you want it, and you could care less about anybody else, you're going to be horrible at networking. Don't even try, because it's going to be horrible. You're not going to work. The next thing is you have to be great at encouraging others. You have to know how to uplift others. You have to know how to encourage others. You have to know how to get out of your own bag enough in order to figure out what really works to help bring someone else up. If you can do that, if you can do those 3 things, communicate, encourage, and collaborate with people exceptionally well, then you're going to be a great networker. You're going to have a wonderful life, a wonderful career, a wonderful opportunity to grow and share with others. If you can't do this well, because for some reason, these lessons that we're teaching you, that we have to deliver for you, you can't grab them, then it's going to be harder for you. I promise you that it's going to be more difficult. And if you do this well, then everything you want is going to come. Everything you want to do, everything you want to be, everything you are, but you have to engage. So I've created this material for you to do that. Go back into the chat, download the environment there, the opportunities there, and you're going to find so much stuff, so many free tools that are there. But I want to lead you through one of the tools right now while we're on the line. And so here is the networking tool that I described to you earlier. Let me see if I can't find it here. Okay, so I'll go here and I'll change that and I'll get rid of that. And there we go. I'll pull it up. Now you can't see it because I don't want to share my screen with you. You'll just see me. It's fine. But if you go in and that first download that I shared with you, whether you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook, you're going to see the Coach Powell's Spartan Networking Approach. And it's going to be 10 questions that you can answer for yourself. And if you got the download, fine. If you didn't get the download, that's fine. I'm going to run through the questions real quick because they're important to know if you're thinking about becoming a networker. And this is just a little extra training I'm going to throw in for you guys. Number one, my diverse, inclusive networks and I are committed to developing win-win strategies that help us reach all our goals. If you have a diverse network that's inclusive, right, and that network is committed to win-win strategies, whether it's 5 people in the network or 10 people in the network or 20 people or 30,000, it doesn't really matter. If that network itself is diverse, it's inclusive, and people are committed to win-win strategy, then you're going to do really well. But I would want you to assess and rate that. Rate whatever your network is today. Is it that way? Is it diverse? Is it inclusive? Are you working on win-win strategies together? If it is absolutely there, give yourself a 10. If it's not, give yourself a 1 or somewhere in between, right? Give yourself a rating in there. And it doesn't matter what the rating is because I don't care. I'm not going to see any of this stuff. But what I am going to remind you of is if you give yourself a low rating, you're probably going to want to do what you need to do to fix it and get yourself a higher rating, right? Number 2. I have a well-organized contact management system that allows me to analyze and communicate well with important members of my power team. If you don't have a good contact management system that helps you to remember who you're talking to, what you're talking about with them, what's next to do with them, what's the assignments that you've worked on together, how is it going, or tracking of your progress. If your contact management system doesn't help you do that, it's broken, and it needs to do that because the more people you communicate with, you connect to, that you deliver to, and you work with, the more difficult it is for you to keep up with things. And you want to make sure that you become well organized and real disciplined, and you make sure that you make your commitments known and you follow through. You need a contact management system to help you with that. Number 3. I have well-written, professionally delivered, scripted dialogues that help me invite the right people to engage with me and enjoy my team. If you are thinking that you can recruit people into your network by just shooting from the hip without a well-thought-through dialogue, script, strategy, technique, process that's going to help you do it, I got a feeling that whatever you're doing is not very professional. Because you're going to want to measure the effectiveness of the messaging. You're going to want to measure the quality of the effort. And if you are doing something different every time with everyone, and there's no real process involved with it, then you're just trying to reinvent the wheel every time at bat. And the people that you want to invite into your network are too important for you to waste their time or your time with ineffective strategy, ineffective method, right? So you want to make sure that you have a process. How do you bring somebody on? How do you onboard them? How do you bring them into your world? How do you invite them? If you don't have processes for those things, it's a fail. You're gonna make yourself miserable. You're gonna make it harder than it has to be. Stop and take your time to develop a process. Number 4, I can look at my networks and evaluate its quality against that of my competitors quickly. Now, there are people who are doing what you're doing. And I promise you, if they're better at it than you are, it's because they have better quality networks. It's not that they have more competence or they have more skills or more talent. No, it's none of that. It's they have better networks. 85% of all of our success in human relationships has to do with who we know and who knows us well. And so it's very, very important that you be able to look at people who are competitors in your industry, people who might be doing similar things that you're doing, and ask yourself the question, what's the quality of my network versus the quality of your network? And give yourself a rating. If it's a low rating, then you need to improve. If it's a high rating, maybe you don't have to worry about that for now, right? Number 5, I can assess the real value of my networks immediately and inexpensively. If your networks are helping you to move forward on a trajectory that you've already kind of strategically outlined, and this is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, towards the strategic goals that I'm trying to hit, the vision that I'm trying to embrace, the missions that I believe in. If your networks are helping you get in those directions and move in those directions, then they're good. If they're not, if you find yourself standing still, being in the same place you were last year this time, then they're not good, and you know it. They're not helping you. There's nothing that's helping you move the needle. There's nothing helping you grow into the person that you want to be, the things that you want to do, the things that you want to have. And so so the value is going to be determined by the pace and the speed at which you're growing towards the thing that you believe and understand that you're here to achieve and be, right? So you have to think about that. Number 6, I can leverage my current team's resources well to grow valuable contacts for me and my organization. If there are people in your network the people that you need to know, and there's nobody in your network who knows those people, then your network isn't very strong enough. You've recruited the wrong people into your network, and you need to jettison those people and recruit people in your network who do know the people that you need to be working with, that you need to be associated with, that you need to be clear with. That's how you build a network, by inviting the people who know the people that you want to know. So, if you want to know the industry leaders for any particular industry, then you need to invite those people who know the people, those industry leaders. And they're not that hard to identify. Go on LinkedIn, put the names and the people that you're trying to involve yourself with, and see who you know and who already knows them. It's not that difficult. And reach out to them and find ways to connect to them and find ways to use those connections and leverage those relationships to grow to the next level. Because people can introduce you to people that they already know, like, and trust, and vice versa. And so the more you engage in that process, the more you're going to be willing to share. Number 7, I understand what my personal strengths are, and I use them consistently to help my team members achieve their goals. I can't say enough about this. If you don't know what you bring to the table, then how do you explain to others what they can count on you for? If you don't know what qualities that you own that are so significant and relevant that others might enjoy, how do you then help them experience the best of you? You have to do the work. You have to figure that out. You have to decide for yourself, who am I? Am I really who I say I am? And am I all that I ought to be in this moment? If you're not, you've got some work to do, my friend. But if you are, then you've got to figure out ways to articulate those ideas and concepts so that others can go, aha, this is what I can count on you for. This is what I can know you for. This is what I can trust you with. This is where you have loads of integrity. If you can't, then I got a feeling that you're missing an opportunity to find your Prince Charming out there. To find, you got to kiss a lot of frogs, right? That's not necessarily true that you have to kiss a lot of frogs to get to Prince Charming. Maybe you have to kiss 1 or 2 frogs. But the more you are at expressing who you are, the better you are at expressing who you are, the better it is that you're going to find the opportunities that you're going to need to find to make the trajectory of your business, your life, your professionalism, and take it to the next level. Number 8, my vision and mission are well understood by the strongest and most influential members of my network. There should be some key players in your network that if they decide, life could be better for you. If you don't have people like that in your network, then you should get them in your network. And if you've reached the plateau where life is always a dream, you should be trying to make sure that you pull some other people up to whatever levels that your satisfaction and happiness are, because that's who we are for each other. We grow together. We create together. Everything we do in humans are social in nature, and I think a lot of in our Western culture we undo that with these notions of individual achievement and individual excess, and it doesn't really play for the rest of the world. So you have to know how to work together with other people, whether they are above you in the socioeconomic hierarchy or below you in the socioeconomic hierarchy. You have to be able to work with other people. Number 9, I deliver messages effectively to my well-developed, diverse networks and receive my desired outcomes quickly. That speaks for itself. If you don't deliver, that's what we talked about earlier, if you can't deliver magic messages, if you can't deliver messages that are effective, that are sticky, that make people engage, that make them want to talk to you, that make them want to reach out to you and bring more opportunities to you, and you bring more opportunities to them, then you've got to do your homework. You got to go back to the drawing board. You got to start from scratch and really find out and identify where you want to make an impact in the world and start delivering the right messages that will help you do that. Number 10, I can always turn to my network for their advice and expertise during any phase of my personal and professional growth and development. You should be able to turn to the people who say they know, like, and trust you to help you. Because I don't know about you, I've got friends that if I don't tell them when I'm in crisis or when I don't tell them when I need help, and they find out later on that I needed help and I got it from somewhere else without them, they usually say something to me like, "You idiot, why didn't you tell me?" They usually make me feel bad for not explaining to them what, and even if they couldn't help me, they could have at least empathized with me and maybe they knew somebody who could help me. You understand what I'm saying? So it's very, very important that you don't waste the opportunity to help someone else be meaningful, significant, even to you, by suffering needlessly alone. Ask for the help with people, especially people who say they like you, who say they trust you, who have invested some effort and time or resources into you. If you think you got to do it all by yourself, you're missing the greatest opportunity of your life. And the greatest opportunity is always going to be in the hands of another person who has resources, who has time, talent, treasure, and relationships that you don't have yet, that you need to have in order to get the things that you need to do done. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing right there. I don't want to go off to the chat room, and I'm going to see, hopefully you guys have some questions in there. Hopefully we've got some things in there that we can answer and talk to. So I'm going to go back out to the chat room. Hopefully we can see something there. We can keep this engagement going. If not, then I'm going to call it a close. Does anybody out there have any questions? I see that there are quite a few members. There's some people that are following us on, everybody's on Facebook. Nobody's on YouTube yet. Okay, great. So people, if you're on YouTube, you'll probably be watching this as a replay. So there's links in the chat box to some exercises that I have. Everything you want to know about the 5 elements of perfect presentation are already there. And I even given you some tools about networking and some things that you could really, really use. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off if I don't see any questions popping up. I see you out there, and Melinda's out there, and Tiffany's out there. But if I don't see any questions popping up, I think that we're going to call it a day. I had fun. This broadcast went for quite a long time, it looks like. I don't know, where's my timestamp? I don't even have it anymore. But I'm going to end the broadcast here, and we are going to move on to a better, brighter day. If you need to reach me, my number is scrolling through the screen right now. There's my website there, as well as a hashtag that I use everywhere. I use it on all the social media platforms. So if you ever need to find out anything I'm doing or any of my content, you can use that hashtag, and most of that stuff is just going to pop right up for you. That's the 9-Step Guru number, 9-Step Guru. Looking forward to talking to you guys. Have a great day, and this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.